Rick Torres is running for Congress. We introduce you to the Bridgeport Businessman in the race that no one's talking much about yet. Also, United Technologies execs dressed down Connecticut saying any place is better to do business. We ask the experts how those comments could help or hurt us. And Tiger is coming back. Good for him, good for golf, right? Or not? Hi, you're watching The Real Story. I'm Lori Perez. Today we're talking about a race that's not getting too much attention just yet. The race in the 4th Congressional District, a seat now held by Congressman Jim Himes. Our first guest is one of the 6 GOP candidates alone seeking to challenge for the spot. Bridgeport native and businessman Rick Torres is a former city Republican Town Committee chair. He ran for mayor in 2003. He is owner of Harbor View Market in Bridgeport. He's a husband and a father of 5. Welcome, Rick Torres. Thanks so much for coming here.
It's my pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're in this race.
Well, I really literally woke up one day and decided that it was really important for America to have people that absolutely love her stand up on her behalf, and I think America needs that right now. And I fundamentally love America. That's my biggest issue that I have.
Aside from loving America, what experience or qualifications do you have for the job?
I have a varied background. I have a background in science, academic background in science. I have a background in business in that I own a business in Bridgeport. I have a background in computers. I ran a computer business for a couple of years. So it's a varied background, and it's very important today in this very technological and diverse world that we live in.
Absolutely.
And besides that, though, and one very important thing, in the last 6 years, I'm a self-taught economics student, and I focus my life on understanding how it is that economies grow, particularly how this country was able to do what it's done over its long history, and how we can then begin the process of restoring freedom so that that economy can grow once again.
Tell me what you think the biggest misstep has been over the past few years then in your studies.
Yeah, the biggest misstep over the past 100 years is government growth. It's government trying to do things on our behalf. For 125 years, our country ran on 2% of GDP. After the IRS was instituted, our government began to grow. As of 2008, it's just under 30% of GDP. If we get this Obamacare and cap and trade, we could be looking at 45% of GDP spending coming from the federal government.
But haven't there been some government programs perhaps that your small business has benefited from?
None that I know of.
None that you know of?
None that I know of. No, I've never applied for SBA loans. It's my hard work that's built my business, I must say, and you know, any loans that I've taken out over the years, I've paid for myself with no help from government. Frankly, that's always the best thing. Remember, if government does something for you or me, it has to take it from somebody else. So, and that somebody else generally is a very productive person. We don't want to take money away from productive people to give it to other people. That's, I think, a big mistake.
Okay, well, let's talk about, you brought up health care. Let's talk about, I don't know much about your business, but your employees, how do they get their health care?
Well, they pay for it themselves. In our case, mine is a small business. I'm not large enough to have a healthcare system in my place. But what I must say, I think that if we are going to talk about healthcare, we should focus on what does work, and that's catastrophic insurance works fine. What we need to do is to go backwards a little bit and maybe start paying our doctors directly and getting this kind of monstrous insurance mechanism that we've created that keeps doctors from even understanding their own prices to the point that you and I start paying for those visits ourselves and the testing ourselves.
As you're watching the healthcare debate and the progress go in D.C., what do you think is going to happen? What do you think should happen with the vote?
Well, I'm very hopeful. I pray that everyone out there in this listening audience call their congressman and their senator and beg them to please not pass this. This is a major, major blow to the American system if we were to pass this. And from my standpoint, I must say I'm not sure that we can turn this back in 2010 or 2012. We're going to be able to need an override of a veto that's going to for sure come. So again, I beg everyone, please get out there and tell folks to not pass this.
And you're opposed to it as a small business owner or as just a personal citizen or both?
Especially as a citizen of the United States. What I'm worried about in life is freedom. Freedom and property are one and the same. The more property the government takes from us to do what it wants to do, the less freedoms that we have. You know that because when you dig into your pocket and you want to go out to dinner and you only have $100, if government takes 40 of it, now you have 60. You're going to have less freedoms associated with your own property. It's important that government stop taking so much money from us. I'm hoping that people realize that, because if not, we're heading towards a 100% government system, which is socialism.
Let's talk about, I read recently that you were in support of the Contract from America. Talk about why you are. That's the Tea Party plan where residents, citizens, rate their top 10 priorities, right? And you would follow their will or their priorities. Talk about why you support that and why you think that that's the way to go.
Well, I mean, Frank, you know, it's kind of funny, but the Tea Party movement in many respects I mirror. What everyone seems terribly upset about out in the world is exactly the same reasons that I got up and got upset about it. It's people's feeling that government is growing out of control. The Contract from America is a series of dictums that say basically we are going to start going back towards the constitutional limits of our country. That's imperative. We have enumerated powers. That means they're numbered, not unnumbered and not unlimited. The founders very clearly put limitations on government so that we would never lose our freedoms.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about jobs, because that's the big story. I've done a lot of panels recently, and everyone's talking about jobs. What are your ideas for getting America back on track in terms of employment and keeping businesses here?
It's critical. Fundamentally critical that we put money back into the economy. And the only way that we can do that is through tax cuts and cutting spending. We must dramatically change the paradigm that we exist in, where we depend on the federal government for so much, and start putting that money back into private hands, very productive hands. When we take money away from productive individuals, what do they do less of? Less production. They produce less products. They hire less people to do that with.
So you want tax cuts for corporations?
Absolutely, because look, that's one of the biggest hidden taxes of all time is taxes on corporations. If you tax a corporation, what are they going to do? They're going to raise their prices accordingly, and you and I pay that tax anyhow. So it's a hidden tax to us. Corporations need to make a certain amount of money to stay in business. So therefore, let's eliminate some of those corporate taxes. Let's eliminate a lot of the private tax percentages so that we, the people, the intelligent people, can get back to the business of the economy and jobs once again.
Okay, we don't have much time left still, but if you could just tell us a little bit about your private background. I know that you came from Cuba.
I actually was born in Bridgeport in 1959. I'm 50 years old. My father was a politician, worked against Batista, thought that Castro was a liberator, went back to Cuba in 1961, realized that he had another tyrant on his hands, and applied to leave immediately. In 1967, we finally got out, thank God, to my sister's help, who helped get the State Department in this country to pull my brother and I out.
How do you think that's going to help you be the best congressman?
I understand tyranny, and tyranny is what's coming. See, the tyranny that I landed into in this country was subsidized housing by the federal government. And what we don't understand is how many of our fellow citizens have been stuck in subsidized housing for all of their lives. That's tyrannical. It may be well-intentioned, but it ends up being tyrannical in nature. We need to start changing that paradigm so those people come and join you and I in the productive side of the list.
All right. Well, Rick, you're an interesting guy. We're going to have a lot more to talk to about in the next coming months. Thanks again for coming. Rick Torres, candidate for Congress. We thank him for being here today. Up next, is Connecticut getting a bum rap, or is the nutmeg state really unfriendly to business? We're going to talk about it coming up.